Why does voter fraud go uninvestigated? Every election cycle we hear about voter fraud. We hear about it from both sides of the aisle. On the left, they tend to accuse the right, through some convoluted conspiracy of illicit activities, of racially biased voter suppression. On the right, the accusations tend to show evidence of attempts by the left to manipulate votes through intimidation, fraud, and outright bribery. No matter which side of the acclaimed corruption concerns you, the simple fact is this: it tends to go grossly under-investigated. I submit that this is not necessarily nefarious. It is a bug, not a feature. It is one of the two things that I have found disappointing in the Trump administration. To be clear, I have been incredibly happy with Donald Trump's presidency outside of these two exceptions: the buttstock debacle and the failure to investigate voter fraud. Over the last several weeks, James O'Keefe has released damning and compelling evidence of serious voter fraud implicating high-level Democrats like Ilhan Omar, the biological ex-wife of a suspected immigration fraudster, and some low-level Republican candidates. The problem, as the question of investigating this, when the election is over, it is either the case that the fraudster was unsuccessful and so the fraud doesn't rise to an adequate level of concern for the winner to pursue investigation, or the fraud was a resounding success, in which case the person deciding whether to investigate has a conflict of interest in that they are implicated in the fraud. Either way, the incentive to investigate is insufficient to justify its pursuit. When Donald Trump won the election in 2016, he won the Electoral College but not the popular vote. At the time, and since then for that matter, Hillary Clinton and the leftists made a big deal about the undemocratic nature of the Electoral College, citing the popular vote as a fairer method. Without relitigating the absurdity of that claim, let's take a moment to examine some facts. Over 1/3 of the total votes cast for Hillary were cast in just 4 cities. That's right, I said cities, not states. If one looks at the electoral map from the time, it's hard to believe that Hillary is credited with winning 21 states. Rather, she won the population-dense urban centers of 21 states. Even those that she won voted overwhelmingly red outside of the state's most dense enclaves of institutional addiction and dependency. Baby mamas voting for sugar daddies.
Somebody needs to pay for all my children.
What's more, those cities that she won were all sanctuary cities with some degree of lenience for criminal aliens to vote. In fairness, to my knowledge, voting in the national election had not been legalized in these rogue states at the time, but many of them allowed these hostile foreign invaders to vote in the local elections and to hold driver's licenses. Much ridicule was heaped on the Donald for suggesting that some 4 million of these votes won by Hillary might be illegal votes, but there is good cause to suspect this. The voter fraud scams that are used to get criminal aliens to vote are generally tied to poorly maintained voter registration rolls. Among the deeply convoluted conspiracies of racism that the right is often accused of is the vote roll scrub. This is when those evil, mean, very bad, nasty Republicans review the voter rolls for existing voter registrations and remove registered voters who have moved out of the district, have become deceased, have been convicted of felonies, or otherwise have become ineligible to vote. These voter rolls are used by fraudsters to identify identities that are registered but unlikely to vote. In many, if not all, of these sanctuary states where the local rogue governments, in direct contravention of national election laws, advocate for voting rights to be extended to hostile foreign invaders in order that they may be allowed to vote against the interests of this country and her citizens, also charge a premium for simple state IDs and oppose voter ID requirements. In fact, if one were to examine most election maps, if you show me a blue state, I will show you one where a state ID costs money and is not required for voting. So the claim that there is nothing to Trump's assertions that there was likely a lot of voter fraud involved in Hillary's popular vote victory is not at all far-fetched. I, instead, suspect that this investigation has not proceeded for the same reason Hillary has not faced penalties for her other obvious crimes of perjury and spoliation: a two-tiered justice system and a deeply corrupted bureaucracy. So, consider this a call to action to none other than President Donald J. Trump himself. On November 4th, Mr. President, whether you have won or lost, fire Christopher Wray and any of the other shills you can manage to jettison, and call for AG Barr to begin a sweeping investigation into widespread voter fraud across the nation. It will no doubt be hampered by the Harris administration if such a tragedy were to befall this great nation, but it will at least expose her for the crook she is when she shuts it down. So again, Mr. President, I am begging you, sprout a sack and take this vital action on behalf of your dedicated supporters and our ill-read comrades. Even those commies deserve to have a fair and untampered election. Which, by the way, the map and numbers suggest would pull the whole Overton window back toward our beloved representative and constitutional republic. This has been a production of the Brushfire Mind. Please, if you've enjoyed this content, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.